Hi everyone, I did my reading for my John Maxwell, and so I thought I would do another, you can call it teaching or speaking or whatever you like, but just my reflections on it. So today is day 3. I haven't done yesterday I didn't do anything, but the thought for today from John Maxwell was, it takes trials to grow as a leader. And he focused on the book of James from the Bible, chapter 5, verses 7 to 11, which is just talking about the prophets and having to go through suffering, being patient in our sufferings. So there's 3 points that he brings up. He says that when we go through negative experiences, we can use them to glorify God, and we can keep focused on our faith, because when we ask God for help, God gets the glory when we come out of those trials. The second thing is that we receive opportunities, and so he talks about how Joseph could have given into Potiphar's wife, and he could have used that to his advantage to get good jobs, to go up higher, and instead, he turned away. He kept his own values. And thirdly, they lead to us developing integrity. So when you look at Nelson Mandela, when he came out of the prison, I've read his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, and he talks about what they went through, the brutality, the times when he couldn't even see his children, he couldn't see his wife, he couldn't go for his son's funeral. I mean, those hurts are very, very deep. They're not just like you just forget about them. But when he came out of prison, similar to Robert Mugabe, he unified the countries. And Robert Mugabe did unify the country to the extent that he could. The violence came up after Britain did not give the money that they were supposed to give us for the willing buyer, willing seller policy. And the Liberals, again, the Liberals didn't do it, because what happened was that we had a change in the government in England. So the Conservatives were in power, and then when Robert Mugabe came into power, the Liberals came in and Tony Blair came in. So they kept umming and ahhing and saying, oh, we want to do this, want to do that, and that money was never given. So, I mean, Robert Mugabe did everything right. He did everything he could to implement peaceful policies, and then the people rebelled when they were not given that land and they were not given that money for that land. So since then, Zimbabwe has had ongoing problems. And then the other point he makes is that when there are negative experiences, we can use them to grow in our spirituality. We can use them to focus on our prayer. We can use them to turn inwards. And that's something else that Mandela noted when in his speeches, in his talks, about there was nothing else to do. What was he going to do in that little cell except focus on his values, focusing on developing patience, focusing on hope, focusing on faith, focusing on things like that? Robert Mugabe used the time to study when he was in prison. So there's a lot of people that will say, oh, well, I didn't get to study, I didn't get to do all these things. But I mean, really and truly in our world, there's so many opportunities, even online. There's so many free courses you can take. You can go on YouTube even if you want to learn. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. We don't have to get degrees to educate ourselves. When I started knitting again this year, I had forgotten how to knit. So I went onto YouTube to watch the videos about how to cast on, how to cast off, and slowly I got the hang of it. I'm not making phenomenal patterns, but I'm slowly starting to knit again, because the last I used to knit was in Zimbabwe, and when you don't use your skills, you forget. And then the last thing he says is that we become prepared in mind and heart for whatever it is. He uses the term leadership. But God uses all these negative experiences, and if we can focus on that, God will help us to get through it. So I focused on that. Yesterday I read up articles on Nelson Mandela, and again today. And I mean, all of us who grew up in early Zimbabwe, we loved Robert Mugabe. He was our hero, because he could have done what Idi Amin did. He could have kicked out all the Indians and told us, go back to India. He could have slaughtered us the way that people got slaughtered, Indians got slaughtered in other countries. But we were treated well, we were welcomed, we were embraced. He used to come to our shop. I remember him coming in, and he was always so welcoming, always friendly. And when you look at the trials of life, I mean, trials start in childhood. They don't only start in adulthood. I remember when we were small, when we were growing up, I used to always ask our parents and my grandparents, like, why can't we go to the Wimpy? And they're like, no, that's the way it is. You people can't go now. I say, but why? Everybody else goes. And I used to go to the counter, the Wimpy counter. I used to ask the man who used to serve, why can't I come inside and sit in the restaurant? And my sister used to say, don't say anything to him. I say, no, I want to know why I can't go inside the restaurant and eat my burger and ice cream and chips and whatever I want. And he used to ask the manager, say, she comes here every day asking me why she can't eat in the restaurant. Eventually, they got sick of it. So they said, okay, you can come inside, but you have to sit in the garden. You can't come and sit inside the restaurant. So we used to sit they had tables inside. You used to go into Wimpy, and then they had a little garden and they had tables there. So they used to let us sit in there. It was the same thing with the drive-in and the cinema. We couldn't go to we had certain days that were allocated that were for the blacks, the coloreds, and the Indians. So we couldn't go to the drive-in on regular days. There were certain days that we had to go. And then my mother used to take us, my dad, my mother, my grandparents, those days they used to take us. It was the same with the river. We had certain days that we could go and enjoy the fishing or go to the river. The only thing we had, which was ours, which the Indian community had built, was our tennis club. We had our tennis club with the tennis courts, and then we had our field where we had our soccer and our cricket and all of that. And then once independence came in, then the whites used to come from the white club, and they used to come and play at our clubs. We were frightened to go there. Even after independence, when they used to say, oh, you people can go now, we used to say, you come and play at our club. We're not coming there to your white club. I say, no, but now it's open, it's for everyone. We said, yeah, we know it's open for everyone, but you people come, you come play by us. So they used to come, the cricketers used to come. And I remember them, that's why I remembered all our cricketers. And I still follow the Zimbabwe cricket. I follow some of the sports. There's a few people I follow on Twitter. So those are the trials that I went through in my childhood. And even the schools, we couldn't go to the same schools as the whites. And then afterwards, everything opened up, then we used to all be integrated and go together. So I'm not somebody who has had a positive experience in Canada, because they have the same mentality. They're like, oh, it is what it is. I'm like, what do you mean it is what it is? It shouldn't be it is what it is, because it keeps them in power. I mean, now, after all these years, if you go and you look at all the appointments for Canada, you'll see it's very rare that women get into positions of leadership. Even today, Justin Trudeau put out a tweet about the first woman in something in Canada. And she's not a visible minority, but she's a woman. So it always boggles my mind, because I guess growing up in Africa, I thought, oh no, things are equal overseas. In Canada and America, things must be different. Like everybody must be equal. There must be lots of women in management, visible minorities. In England, I saw that, but I didn't see it here when I came. And so it was a culture shock, because I came here and I went to work in the banks, and there were very few women in leadership positions, and visible minorities even less. So I persevered. I did a good job for them as the executive assistant, and then I went on to do my contract work in project coordination with the multi-million-dollar projects that I used to help with the administration, tracking the projects, helping with events. And they were high-pressure roles, so they always brought me in for 3 to 6 months, and then they let me go. And it's hard when you're dealing with that kind of pressure, and then you have unemployment for a long time. It takes a toll on you, because you don't have an income coming in, you don't have anybody to fall back on. But I persevered, and I got through it. Then I bought my home. I bought it on a high-end ratio mortgage, my condo, and I held on to it for 10 years. I was hoping during that 10 years that I would get a different executive assistant role or a permanent HR role, but it didn't happen. So then I went into the call center work, and that also was full of abuse. When people notice your accents, they criticize, and they're like, oh, go back to Zimbabwe. Or they'll swear at you and shout at you and yell at you. And some of them are very nice, but some of them are awful. So I guess that's my perseverance. And it's very, very hard. It's very hard, because I was never one, and you can even ask people who worked with me in construction in England. I never ever swore or used vulgar language, or even in Zimbabwe. Even when the adults did it in the family, I never used vulgar language, but now I use it because everybody uses it on me. And it's like, if you don't use it, they say, oh yeah, you think you're better than everyone, or you think you don't know how to be with them, how to interact with them. It's disgusting, but it's become like that in England, it's become like that here. You get it on the phones. It started with the movies, because people watch the movies, then they want to imitate those movies, and then it comes into society. But I persevere, and I do the best that I can, and I keep my faith to the best that I can. I keep my values. And also with my history, I don't forget where I came from. People like to make like, oh, it was always fair, it was always equal, it was always, no, it wasn't. And those of us who have been here a long time, the millennials, have it much, much better than Gen X. Because the millennials get the support of their grandparents. So their grandparents would rather get them into a good paying job than help us get into good paying jobs. And we are the ones that are being hurt, the sandwich generation. But we persevere, we carry on, and we do whatever we can to make things better for other people. So that white picket fence house and the 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and all the things we had in Zimbabwe with almost an acre of land around us, I would love to have those things. Other people don't want that, that's fine. I want those things. I want a big house, I want a music room, I want to have land around me, I want to have a couple of bedrooms so that if my friends come and stay with me, I'll have a place for them. I don't have to tell them, oh, go stay in the hotel, or make people sleep on the floor. So I want all those things for myself. And those are my dreams, they're not other people's dreams. But our children see what we do, and then they want to do it, or they want to do better. And that's the way that it should be, because we are the role models for them now, for the next generation that's coming up. So that's what I focused on today. And I mean, there were not that many celebrations this year for Mandela Day, but they do keep it with the embassy. The embassy keeps it, and there were a few places that celebrated. Like Nando's got people to bring in tin foods and they gave away meals. But I mean, with us, we don't give to get. When we take tin foods to the church or we do things, we put that into God's hands because God brings the reward, even through all those trials. It's the same thing with what happened at Credit Suisse. I could have said, yes, I also like Eddie Farid. I want to be his friend, and blown over the whole thing, but I was not comfortable because my professionalism and my reputation was put at stake, because I've never had that kind of a situation with anybody in any of the companies I worked at. I might have been friendly, but I was friendly in a nice way. I didn't give anybody the wrong impression. So those are the trials that we go through. Those are the trials that I have been through, and not from now as an adult, from a child, where you don't know where your next meal is coming from. You don't know whether you're going to have money to go to school. You don't know whether you're going to be able to afford that next meal, or where it's going to come from, or the locusts come and they eat all the crops. We've lived through all that, all the DDT, all the AIDS infected blood that was put into people, and then they said, oh no, we are the promiscuous people. All that stigma. You can read even today, there's an article I posted on LinkedIn about how prejudiced the Canadian government was. They didn't want to give, some of them didn't want to give Nelson Mandela the citizenship that he got here in Canada. Robert Mugabe, I don't think he ever came here. And even if you go home now, when I landed at the airport and I came in, they were so happy to see me, and then they said to me, you came from Canada? I said, yeah. They said, yeah, we knew you were coming. I said, oh, okay. And then she said to me, we don't like Canada, why don't you come home? I said to her, there's no jobs here. You people want me to come home and do what? South Africa was the same thing. All of the people that helped me at the airport, they all said, why don't you come home? I said, I would come home if I had a job. I don't have anything to come to. And they're like, next time don't leave it so long. You came after so long. I said, well, I don't have money. I said, it's not like when we go to Canada, it's not like we land good paying jobs and we get good opportunities. We don't. I said, we get contract work, we get sporadic work. Most of the time we're unemployed. We don't get the good paying jobs. The people that get into those jobs are people that know people in companies, and then they sponsor them and they take them. And they're like, oh, you better come back soon, don't stay away so long. I said, well, I'll try. Some of them even came and gave me a hug. Complete strangers. All the black people that were doing all the work at the customs. So what goes around comes around, because now all the whites are going into the poverty and their families are going into hardship and all that. So they might be at the top now in Canada, and they might think that, oh, they can abuse me on the calls and shout at me and say, fuck you, and put the phone down on me. And not just the whites, everybody that's done that to me. They might think that they're on top now, but God sees everything. And I have not given up on my health. I've not given up on my dreams. I've not given up. And why should I? Because I put in the work and I've done better. My scores and everything are better than the people who are still employed at Teleperformance and the people who are being put in director level roles in the Toronto School of Theology. I've done better than them, but still they won't give that job to me. They'll give it to somebody who has gotten the approval and the favor of the bishops and archbishops. And those are the ones that get the promotions. That's the way it is in this country. And even when Nelson Mandela came out, I mean, it was appointed. They appointed him to the positions that he got, and then the country voted for him. So I don't give up. I mean, maybe I'll get my break through my John Maxwell, or maybe I'll get my break through another opportunity. Maybe somebody will contact me and ask me, come speak for us. I don't know, but I'm not going to give up. And I've always put God first in my life. I've never, when I've missed church, it's because I was working or I was too sick to go. I've always put God first. And I give God the glory. When I get my jobs, I say thank you. I go to the mass, I light a candle. So I've always been alone, but I've always had good friends around me. And the things that have happened to me, I don't deserve it. But there are millions of us who go through this experience. And when you come here from Zimbabwe, they treat you like you're stupid. They won't even give you a job packing boxes. And I didn't even come here straight from Zim. I came here via England. And still, I couldn't get anything. Not even to pack a box. I'm like, come on, you can train me, you can give me a job and show me. I worked in bakeries in England. I know how to pack a box. Oh no, you don't have Canadian experience. That's just discrimination. That's all it is. Because there are people who have less experience than me and less qualifications than me, and they get the good jobs. They get them. They get the jobs paying 75,000, 80,000, 100,000. They get the jobs. And they get it through people that they know. Every company has a referral system. There's no company that doesn't have a referral system. And when my name gets put forward, whether it's in the church or the banks or anywhere else, they don't choose me for those jobs. I have to persevere because I don't have any other choice. I mean, what is the choice? Give up and then what? Don't study and then what? Stay stupid. Don't learn. Don't get your masters. Don't study further. Don't do anything. For what? What kind of a life is that, and who would want that kind of a life for their nieces, for their nephews, for their children? Who would want you to not study and not come up in life and not to do well? Only people who are bitter. People who are bitter and who have not seen their children haven't had it, so they don't want you to have it. It's like that story with the dog in the manger, the children's story, about how the dog stood on the hay and it wouldn't let the cows and the donkeys eat that hay. Even though that food was not for it, it couldn't eat that food, it wouldn't let them eat it because it was selfish. And some people are like that. That's why racism happened. That's why apartheid happened. That's why we still have reserves in Canada and we have people without food and water. It's racism. It's discrimination. I didn't do anything to deserve what's happened to me in this country. Whether it's by family or by companies or anything, I didn't deserve it. Even what I post on social media, I was trained about what I can post on social media, what I can't post on social media. I was trained. And my experiences are helping other people. Because when people come here, they should know what to expect. This country has a history of racism. From the outside, everything looks nice. They sell it as a place of equal opportunity. Oh, come here, you'll get help, you'll get housing, we'll help you. There's no help when you come. If you want to get an education, you have to pay for it and go and do it yourself. There's no help when you come here. Once you are here, if there are benefits, you'll get them the same as everybody else. There's no special help for anybody. There's nothing like that. And they won't call it racism. They'll just say that's the way it is. Or life's not fair, is it? But it's racism. It's racism and it's in your face. And if we don't speak up and if we don't take a stand for things like Mandela Day and our histories and what we've come through, nobody else is going to do it. Why should they? Do you think they care? They don't care. They don't care. What's it got to do with them? As long as their families have got clothes on their backs and food and water and big cars and big houses, do you think they care? They don't care. We have to do it for ourselves, and we have to market what we've done, our education, what we've overcome. We have to do it because they don't care. My scores were better than everybody at Teleperformance. They still let me go. I was Employee of the Month so many times. They still let me go. The opportunities they wanted me to do, working overnight, knowing I have a disability, they wouldn't accommodate me. They couldn't even find the sick note that I had sent them. I had to look for it in my email, find it, and resend it to them. So my doctor was also saying it's a very bad company. I said, oh, but they won so many awards. He's like, no, the way they're treating you, this is not the way to treat somebody. I said, well, Dr. Yin, from my experience, all the companies are like that. They're all like that. There's nothing better that I found. They're all the same. So that's the way it goes. I left things better than I found them. Whether they appreciate it or not, it's up to them. So today I read this book, a poem from this book, Benedictus, A Book of Blessings by John O'Donoghue, and it's for friendship. May you be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend to yourself. Journeying to that place in your soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change you. May it transfigure what is negative, distant, or cold within your heart. May you be brought in to real passion, kindness, and belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to them, be there for them, and receiving all the challenges, truth, and light you need. May you never be isolated, but know the embrace of your Anamkara. And that's the beauty of soul friends. Friends who know what you've gone through, friends who've gone through the same experiences, and friends who will remember with you the gift of memory. I won't forget what Nelson Mandela and Robert Mugabe and all our leaders went through. And I won't forget what I went through. And if I was a bitter person, I wouldn't have helped as many people as I've helped. I wouldn't have made things better for others. I wouldn't have embraced love and hope and faith. I would have only focused on myself. I'm not that kind of a person, so it doesn't matter what people say about me. You have to look at what I do, and you have to look at how my life has changed other people's lives, not just here, but also in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in England. I didn't just sit at home and get fat. I have a lot of weight now, yes, because I've been under pressure, and when your body's under pressure, it also retains the weight, and also COVID. But I am not the horrible person that I've been made out to be. And I deserve better from this country. I deserve better jobs, better paid jobs. I deserve to be treated with respect. And if people can't see it, there's something wrong with them.